Yeah, guys, as we bounce back into the Cavs, I want to remind you that today's episode is brought to you by Buckeye State Credit Union. If you're unfamiliar with them, let me introduce you to the financial friend you didn't know you needed until now. Buckeye State Credit Union is a local brand that offers a wide range of products from checking accounts to home equity lines of credit and auto loans. They have some of the lowest rates around and are committed to serving Northeast Ohio. The Cleveland location is in Shaker Heights, but there are 5 brick-and-mortar locations across the state. Buckeye State Credit Union is here to help you make your life easier. They make banking more convenient, always putting the customer first, so you leave feeling cared for, valued, and respected. Connect, simply, and adapt. Those are the core values that make Buckeye State Credit Union the right choice for you. For more information, you just have to head over to buckeyecu.org for more information. Buckeye State Credit Union, your money simplified.
All right, guys. So, by the way, there's been some more schedule leaks real quick before we move on. The Cowboys hosting the Chiefs on Thanksgiving Day. It's an interesting game.
So the Chiefs play Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yep.
They requested
and they're going
Christmas.
to Brazil week 1. Nothing seems to faze them, though. Anyway, okay. So this week I am every week for Little League. There's somebody in charge for the week, like one of the managers. So this is the week that I'm in charge of Little League. So I'm at the Little League a lot anyway, but because this week I'm there every moment. I must have had 100 people in the last 2 days. What are the Cavs going to do this offseason? Mm-hmm. What are they going to do this offseason? I said, listen, I got to talk to Jason and Mike. I don't know what the hell's going on with this second apron nonsense, but from what I believe is the case is they really can't do much of anything. Is that the case, or do I have that information wrong?
As they are currently constructed, no, there's not much they can do.
So even if the money works, they can't trade superstar for superstar.
No, you can
in theory.
if the money matches.
Okay.
You can.
So what's the restriction? What is the exact restriction? Go ahead.
This is from, I'm going to read this word for word. This is from 2 paragraphs real quick from John Hollinger's piece this morning in The Athletic.
Okay.
On the Cavs and what the second apron and restrictions mean.
Yeah.
This is from John Hollinger, word for word. Unfortunately, in the apron world, every dollar counts, even if ownership is willing and able to shoot money out of a fire hose. The Cavs are $27.3 million over the projected 2026 luxury tax line with only 10 players under contract. Even if they fill those last 4 roster spots with minimum contracts, the Cavs will be roughly $34 million over the tax and $15 million over the projected second apron line of $207.8 million. Being in the second apron subjects Cleveland to a draconian transitional regime. It means the Cavs cannot sign any free agents for more than the veteran minimum, cannot make any trades that aggregate salary or take on more money that is being sent out.
What is aggregate
They can't
salary?
combine 2 salaries to match Giannis.
Aha. So they can't trade for Giannis.
We said that the other day.
We told you that already.
Maybe you weren't on the show.
I don't think I was here.
So they can't aggregate money.
Okay.
They can't take on a single dollar more than they're sending out.
Right.
They cannot sign and trade their own free agents. They cannot use cash in trades that incentivize salary dumps. And that calculus is before they spend any money to bring back free agents like Ty Jerome or Sam Merrill, or try to add another wing with size or attempt to add another piece by putting their 2031 first-round pick in play.
So the only way that they could have, in theory, traded for Giannis is if they traded a player that is making equal or more money than him.
I don't think you mentioned the frozen pick, because that's really important.
And that frozen, I did not make, that was later.
So if they're a second apron team next year, and by all accounts right now they're going to be, their second round pick is frozen in 2033, which means you can't move it, can't trade it. So that leaves them 2031 and 2032. They could trade one, but not both.
First round pick.
First round pick.
Okay.
So you can move one of those, and that's it.
Right.
And then if you stay in the second apron for, I think it's 3 years in a row, that pick drops to 30th automatically.
So even if you finish with the second worst record in basketball, your pick would drop to 30th.
Yeah.
And it's all those years out to be even more punitive, because you're probably not going to be they figure you're not going to be very good at that point because your contention window's now.
Right.
So they're like, the owners have really locked themselves down on this stuff.
Yeah, so I wonder why they did. I guess they did. You can't trade the money in the aggregate because they're like, that team's probably already good. We don't want them trading 2 mediocre players for a great player.
Yes, they're stamping out super teams. They're trying to prevent owners from being able to build super teams. That's why you can't aggregate.
If you reach the second apron and you're not championship capable, you're completely screwed.
I've said on the show 100 times,
right.
You have to be whole
right
when you get there.
Yeah.
And that's what, so there's like, when Phoenix got there, Phoenix just had an owner in Matt Ishbia who they all go through this. They've got the big, energy going on, and they just spend like crazy.
Right.
Give me stars, give me stars.
And it completely failed.
But they had so many holes on the rest of the roster.
Right.
You can't operate that anymore because you have no levers to pull to make your roster better. If you go into the second apron, your roster better be whole. And the Cavs were probably going to be a second apron team next year, probably. And the Hunter trade ensured they were going to be a second apron team.
Right.
And they're okay. When they made the deal, they were okay with that.
Right.
Because it felt and looked like a pretty whole roster.
Yeah.
And if you're able to bring back Ty Jerome, you can keep all of the key pieces of this roster.
You keep your top 6 together if you bring back Ty.
Right.
And you have, I've said, we've talked about this on the show. I think you have a 3-year window. You had this year and you have 2 more years. And then for sure you got to blow this thing up.
Yeah.
I've had people in the league tell me, nope, they got 1 more year. It's this year and next year, and that's it. Now, it really
what's the reason? Are they saying that because of unhappiness from maybe Donovan?
No. Financials, the punitive of tax penalties.
For example, in the second apron, if Ty Jerome signs a $10 million contract with the Cavs, it costs Dan Gilbert $62 million.
So, $62 million?
Yes.
I mean, does he care about that? That's a lot.
That's one player, but when you add that out for the whole roster.
Okay, well, let me ask you this.
To answer that,
go ahead.
Everyone says Dan will spend, and Dan will spend.
But that's a lot for Ty Jerome.
The last year LeBron was here, they were a repeat offender, and the taxes were more punitive, and they absolutely affected some of the decisions they made. I think they moved on from Andy. No, was it Andy? No, I can't remember now. But they made roster moves that year to try and cut salary, because and now the taxes are even more punitive than they were 10 years ago. So yes, he will spend for sure. Dan wants to win. He wants to win without LeBron.
Yes.
It's imperative to do this. Because right now his legacy is he won with LeBron. He wants to win one without him. So he will spend. But all of these guys have a pressure point where it just becomes too much.
So let me ask you guys this. I think a couple of weeks ago we all thought that this team could eventually win a championship.
Yes.
Call me prisoner of the moment if you will. I don't think this team as currently constituted can win a championship. Do you guys still believe that they can win a championship as currently constituted?
That's not an easy question to answer.
It's not. It's hard.
One thing real quick. If they want to get out of the second apron, there are ways to maneuver out. But it would require Isaac Okoro makes $11 million and Dean Wade makes, I think, $6.5 million.
Okay.
So you could cut that $17.5 million.
Right.
But you can't cut it. You have to find where you got to find a team with cap space and trade it into space.
Both of those guys are not free agent. Well, Okoro I know is.
That's 2 more years and Dean is 1 more.
Dean next
so you'd have to trade them both for essentially
nothing.
Well,
You're just trying to get off
doesn't the money have to match when you make a trade?
It does, but like non-guaranteed, like there's ways to do it.
I got you.
If a team has cap space, you can trade it into
cap space.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not a lot of teams have cap space, unfortunately.
Yes.
How much?
And it's also important to point out.
Yeah.
Isaac Okoro, who's going to pay $11 million for Isaac Okoro? He's not a hot commodity.
Right, so especially when you have nothing to sweep the trade with.
You have to give a pick, and they don't have they have second-round picks. But
so it would be just somebody bailing them out. Which
it's so you could dump them. In theory, you can dump Isaac, you can dump Dean, and Dean I think actually has a little bit of value because he's on an expiring deal, $6.5 million. It's not a lot of money. Big, long, athletic, can shoot threes, can guard, defend. We've seen in 3 years he hasn't been great in the postseason, but I think Dean would be more appealing than Okoro would on the open market. Isaac, I don't know who's going to take on that contract. But theoretically, you could cut that money, get out of the second apron, and operate as normal.
And what was the projected over the second apron they were?
I think it's 15.
Right now?
Yeah.
Let me pull it back
Does
up.
They're
projected $15 million over the second apron, and that's with 10 players on contract.
And that's without Ty Jerome.
That's without Ty Jerome and 3 other league minimum guys.
So in theory, to get under the apron, you'd have to let Ty Jerome walk. You'd have to trade Dean Wade.
By the way, you're losing Sam Merrill too. He's a free agent.
So you'd have to let Merrill walk, let Jerome walk, trade Okoro, trade Dean Wade, if that's somebody's willing to take those guys, especially Okoro.
And sign
and
6
then
veteran
replace them
guys.
with veteran minimum players.
Yep.
Yes.
And then they'd be under. But that you would have traded your entire bench.
Yeah.
So
that's why
you'd have 6 legitimate players.
So that's why I'm saying theoretically they can get out of the second apron.
Yeah.
Or, I mean,
you go for it 1 more year.
Okay.
Or you trade Jared Allen. But even that doesn't get you out of the. It doesn't get you out because you're not trading for nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
You're acquiring money for.
Same thing if you trade Darius Garland.
So they are a second apron team.
Yeah.
Next
Okay.
So real quick before you go.
Yeah.
The caveat with all the discussions we have this offseason is, does the trade make sense? And is it financially possible under the second apron? Because a lot of these deals
tricky thing,
in
right?
on paper, in theory, sound awesome. Yeah, package Darius and Allen for Giannis. I don't think that gets you Giannis anyway.
No.
But like that's not actually possible.
That's the thing, guys.
It is not possible.
Obviously, you can't trade for Giannis. Even if they could, I don't think they have the weapon.
Jimmy Haslam ain't trading Giannis here.
You stole my line.
Well, you did. You stole my stat last night in the article. So I
texted that. I
It would make up for the Browns.
No, I texted him that the other day. I said, "You think Jimmy is going to help deliver a championship to another Cleveland
Doesn't
team?"
he owe it to Cleveland?
Yeah, you convince him of that.
He screwed the football team over.
You convince him of that.
Okay,
There's zero. Matt Ishbia is not sending Kevin Durant to Cleveland.
Right.
Jimmy Haslam is not sending Giannis to Cleveland.
Okay.
So take out the fact that it's financially impossible. The owners of those teams are not going to help the Cavs.
Makes sense. Giannis, you can't do anyway, so it's irrelevant. Even if you
Durant, you can't do either.
Durant. Okay, so do you guys have a realistic target? Like, is there somebody? And let me ask you this before we get to those targets.
I have one.
Are the Cavs better off? And I don't know that there's that many guys like this anymore because obviously the game has changed. Are the Cavs better off replacing Darius Garland with a true pass-first point guard? I know there's not that many guys like that.
Do they exist in the NBA today?
I don't know. Is there
TJ
anybody?
McConnell?
No, you don't trade Darius for another point guard. You trade Darius if you go this route.
Yeah, go ahead.
You trade Darius and you make Donovan your point guard.
For a wing. Yeah.
Right, and this way,
I don't think there's a massive market. I was talking to executive with a different team as I was walking to the door, as I was driving in this morning, and I said, I don't think there's much of a market for Darius at $40 million. He said, I don't either, but there's other teams that like him.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what you get for him. I don't know, and I don't even know necessarily. And the point he was making is it's really hard to win with two undersized guards, and the Cavs are finding that out.
Yeah.
I think Jared is the move. If it's
you don't think they should try to trade both?
No, I would.
Okay.
No, I would trade Jared. Darius wants to be here,
right?
And
but the only reason I'm saying that, Jason, is Evan Mobley's got to be at worst second in shot attempts on this team, doesn't he? And can that happen if Darius and Donovan are both here?
It can, but it takes a concerted effort.
Yeah.
To do that, like everyone has to be bought in on that.
Yeah.
I would move Jarrett, but the other point. I was talking this morning on the way in. The guy I was talking to works in a front office, said the Cavs may be the first test case under this new second apron life. Like Boston is the first, but Boston has a championship.
Right.
So they can say, hey, we won.
All right.
We're done. We're out. Yeah. Especially with Tatum now.
Yeah.
Like Boston may get out of the tax entirely.
Yeah.
Because what are they playing for at this point?
Right. Especially with Tatum might miss the whole season next year.
And they got
There's no might. He's out.
They got to get under the luxury tax. They're not a repeat offender. When he is healthy, they start to build it up again.
So will the Cavs...
So his point was, the Cavs might be the first team in this new world to really be put to a decision of do we forge ahead in this and keep going for it and try to win, or do we pull back and back off and try to retool? It's hard. Because there's no roadmap for this.
Don't you think they have to go make some change, whether it's Allen or Garland?
I don't.
And go for it at least one more time.
Yeah, I don't think. I wrote about it this morning.
Yeah,
I don't think this team is tough enough. Period.
100%.
And you can apply that to on the court physicality on the court, getting pushed around. You can apply that to injuries. I just don't think they're tough enough.
You're right on.
And Jared is part of the problem with that.
Yeah.
And this is 3 years in a row. And I hate to keep saying, we talked about it this morning, and I keep saying Jared. And it's not like I'm trying to blame Jared Allen for 3 years of failures.
Sure.
And I'm not. But he's the one piece I think you can most easily break off. You can get something for.
Yeah.
I think he's got value. He's under $20 million contract for one more year, and then it jumps to $30 million. And this is 3 years in a row of the postseason. We know what happened 2 years ago against the Knicks where he said the lights were too bright, and Mitchell Robinson just absolutely abused him. And then last year with the whole fiasco over the rib, and now this year, 11 points and 6 rebounds in 2 games, the last 2 games of the series. I just think that's the piece. I don't know how you bring him back. I said that last year, though, and they brought him back. So that's where I would start, is breaking that off and seeing if you can get some more size and another shooting wing for him. It's hard to trade a non-shooting big for a wing who can shoot. It's really hard. And I can't give you a name right now. We're less than 24 hours.
Yeah,
away.
sure.
I want to see how the rest of this plays out. But, I mean, you think the Lakers would want Jared Allen? He'd be a perfect fit on the Lakers.
Right. So but is there somebody from the Lakers that...
Rui Hachimura?
But I don't know.
Does that make you significantly
I don't
better?
know enough about him to know if that makes me excited.
And also, I'm not sure that the money. I think the money would work on that. I'm not sure. Is LA a second apron team?
No.
Guys, I can't. I don't know how. I know it's the job. I don't know how I can watch the Cavs play in the regular season next year. How am I supposed to do that?
I think there's a lot of people that are going to feel that way.
Donovan said at his exit meeting today, we can go 82-0 in the regular season.
It's irrelevant.
Next year. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
And he's right. In terms of the future of this team.
Yeah. You said you had a player in mind.
I did. I'll get to that.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to stand on their soapbox and say you have to blow this thing up,
Yeah.
I have nothing. I have no defense against that. And if someone wants to stand on a soapbox and say they should run it back, bad luck, whatever reason, injuries, all that, they deserve another chance with the coach, second year with Kenny. Give it one more shot because you know the bill's coming and eventually it's going to have to break up. And can you make a marginal trade that actually makes you better? I'll hear that argument. I don't know how. It's too soon after the immediate aftermath for me to have like a definitive either way. I will say, making trades just to make a trade, oftentimes, is a step back. If it's not a tangible upgrade at either position,
Which is going to be hard to do.
and that's my point.
Yeah.
And that's why I hear the credence. And once again, I don't know how I feel, but I'll hear the argument of Boston doesn't have Tatum next year. We won 64 games in the regular season. Maybe they just need another. I'll hear it. I'm not saying I feel either way. The one name that I love, and I'm not sure this makes sense from their side, but Houston has a plethora of wings. And they got a bunch of dudes who have been coached by Ime. Ime is, in my opinion, the toughest coach in the NBA. Jason, if you disagree, by all means, tell me there's another tougher coach. He only wants players. He won't play you if you don't meet a certain level of toughness on and off the court. And Tari Eason is a guy who's been buried, not necessarily buried on their bench, doesn't play nearly as much as he could on a bunch of different teams because they have 4, 5, 6 wings that are all really good.
How big is he?
6'7",
Yeah.
long arms, relatively good shooter. Not an elite shooter, but an absolute hound on defense.
So what's the trade?
Something with Allen. And if they decide to go away from Steven Adams, and they like playing that 2-big lineup with Alperen Şengün and Steven Adams in the playoffs, Jared Allen for Eason. I don't know if the money, I'd have to do a little more digging out and getting the exact details, but Tari Eason's a guy that I think stylistically, attitude-wise, he brings, I don't want to use the word junkyard dog because that had its time and place in Cleveland. It's kind of been washed out. He ain't a dude you want to see in an alley late at night. Let's just put it that way. Like, tough dude.
Okay.
Ain't afraid to scrap it up. He's built just like DeAndre Hunter. Little, not as long lengthwise and wingspan, but a little more physical. And he hounds dudes for 94 feet. That's a guy that I think you could bring in if the price is right. And I'll look up his contract if you filibuster for a second.
He also averaged 12 points a game last
Yeah,
season.
he's good. No, he's legitimately a good player.
Good offense, too.
Legitimately a good player. 3-and-D wing, emphasis on the defense, and just an attitude change.
What are you doing? Let's say you make that trade. Who else is playing center for the Cavs?
One of your vet minimum guys you got to find is your backup
Like just
center.
some scrappy dude who can play some defense and give you a putback or two when you need it. I mean, that's what you're doing.
I mean, in theory, you're closing games with Mobley, Hunter, Eason, Mitchell, and Garland. Like that.
Right.
That's your closing five.
You guys don't think they should trade Garland at all, or it's just not a trade?
You can have that conversation.
Yeah, I'm willing to hear any. I'm open to any discussions this up. My approach to the whole Cavs offseason, I'm willing to listen. But I'm not quite sure if the value for a point guard that makes $40 million a year, who's been injury-plagued in back-to-back postseasons, and even though he had a great regular season, his postseason numbers are not the same as what they are in the regular season.
And there's questions about his maturity and toughness.
At $40 million, I'm just not sure what you're getting back that necessarily
Well, you got to be. I mean, the Cavs need to be open-minded to the right offer for Darius Garland, I think. Now, you're right. There may not be an offer that's worth making, but they have to be open-minded to it.
The East is wide open. It's wide open.
Yeah.
Especially with what happened the other night in Boston or in New York with Boston.
Yeah. I mean,
for as awful as it feels today, and it feels awful, they're not that far away. They're still right on the precipice. It doesn't feel that way, but they are.
Yeah.
They're still a really good team.
But Jason, the one thing, I mean, you said they're not tough enough, right?
They're not.
How is that going to change? If you don't make changes to the roster,
I agree.
How is that going to change?
I agree, but I don't think that it's like a blow it up scenario.
No, I agree. Of course,
I think it's a you make one tweak if it's the right tweak.
Yeah.
You know, I think I was talking to somebody about this last night. We talked about on the show when we had Jared Greenberg on.
Yeah.
I believe Donovan is obsessed with winning. He's consumed by it.
Mm-hmm.
He's farther along that path than a lot of the other guys in that locker room.
Right.
And I don't know how you catch them up, because that brings toughness inherently.
Right.
When you will cut off your leg to win a game, which that's the point Donovan's at, because he's made all the money, he's made all NBA teams. The only thing left, the only hole he has is winning. And some of these other guys, I think they're still earlier in their careers. They're still a little bit younger.
Yeah.
They maybe haven't had some of the devastation and heartbreak that Donovan has. They're just not at that point. And some guys, frankly, never get there.
Right.
Like,
They
just don't. But when you find that inside of you that I have to win, nothing else will satisfy me, that goes a long way in bringing out toughness and all that other stuff that we're talking about.
I have the deal. Yeah. I have the official deal. And shout out to my guy Luke at Real Cavs Fans. He texted me this last night.
Okay.
We were going back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
His money projection's spot on. The Rockets are losing Steven Adams. I mentioned that before. They like playing the two centers together with Şengün and Steven Adams. Jared Allen's an upgrade over Steven Adams. Tari Eason and Jabari Smith Jr. They make $20 million on the dot. You finagle that last dollar there.
Jabari Smith was a high pick who hasn't panned
Third
out,
overall
right?
pick. He's 22 years old, 4-5 combo that can shoot a little bit.
Yeah.
Hasn't reached his potential, but also has been in a weird situation in Utah where they have 38 dudes.
Yeah.
Eason's a guy I love. That gives you two wings. There's your backup center right there. That's the deal I'd make right now.
You know,
I think that makes the Cavs better. And more versatile.
And it may, like, the Cavs may be in a situation where you make a trade, and like maybe they trade Darius Garland for two players, because you can do it the opposite way, right? You could trade. You can
take two players for Garland
in the aggregate for Garland.
Yes.
You just can't trade Garland and another player for Giannis.
Correct.
That way, but. Like, maybe they're better off getting two players who are not as good as Darius.
Basically what I just...
Yes, yeah. and oh, man, they just need to bring in some tough guys, some guys who are as obsessed with winning as Donovan is.
They have to find their Marcus Smart for Kristaps Porzingis.
Yes.
In whatever form that looks like.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it before, but in the old world, prior to the second apron and that whole...
Yeah.
It used the old adage in the NBA used to be 4 quarters don't equal $1. If you've got $1 player, you never trade $1 player for 4 quarters,
right?
Because you're not going to be as good. And I've asked a couple people, like, is that still true? And the answer has been like, we don't know yet. Like, we just don't. It's just too new.
Yeah.
But because I said earlier, like, I asked, is the second apron here to stay? And the answers I've gotten back is, oh, yeah, this isn't going anywhere.
Right.
And I keep screaming the owners made a bad deal. And the response is, who do you think negotiated the deal? And I said, how did, like, Ballmer and Lacob and those guys allow this to happen? And the answer was, they're the ones that wanted it to happen. Because it's a lot easier to not have to shell out the money and throw your hands up and say, well, sorry, it's the
Ballmer
rules.
just let Paul George walk for that exact reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be potentially a genius move, because Paul George was absolute doggy doo-doo this year.
It's going to be fascinating. And, you know, in terms of that analogy of the 4 quarters being worth $1, I guess it depends what dollar it is, right? Like a LeBron in his prime is a different dollar than Darius Garland.
Yeah. Sure.
You know,
and you can argue, is Darius really a max player? And I've had teams tell me, we don't think he's a max player.
Right.
But with the position the Cavs were in, you kind of have to give it to him.
But like,
and it's just like Evan last year. You could have argued, well, do you really have to give Evan a max deal? Has he really proven to be a max player? Well, that's just where the league is at right now, and especially in a market like Cleveland. And we wrote it last year. His agent told him, don't bring him to Cleveland, and they brought him anyway. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
He's happy.
Yeah.
He's good.
Right. But you have to pay him.
Now you got to pay him the max, whether he's worth it or not. You got to pay that.
Right. And with Darius.
And luckily he's evolved. And,
sure. I just think, like, I could be wrong, but it's got to be the right two players. I just think turning Darius into two good, like turning Darius who's a borderline all-star or all,
He's an all-star. He's a multiple-time all-star.
Definitely an all-star.
So Darius who's an all-star.
But not every all-star is a max player.
Sure. Into two good players who are not quite all-stars.
Here's part
if that's realistic.
If it is,
could be good.
It's worth it. I'll do way more deep diving on potential trades this summer. It's a lot easier to find salaries that match $20 million than find a couple salaries to match $40 million, because the days of mid-range, mid-price guys don't exist, for Jason's point. When these young guys get a chance to sign their contracts,
get max deals.
They get these max deals, and then veterans who are on the free agency market because of the apron now are making less and less.
So you're saying it's going to be hard to trade Darius because he's making $40 million?
I think that's a legitimate roadblock. I'm not saying
I think there are teams who are interested in him, but it's not like they've got 20 calls coming in.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
I just think it's hard to get.
It's going to be fascinating.
It's hard to get to $40 million in salary with 2-3 guys.
Yeah.
When guys are either making $33 million or like $10 million. You see, you know what I'm saying? Like there's not a lot of 12, 14s to add up.
The add up can't be over $40 million.
Has to be exactly.
It's a tricky thing, but I don't know if the Cavs care about this, and the Cavs do well attendance-wise. But if they want anybody to like be excited about the regular season, you've got to change the roster up. Now, that's not the reason to do it, but
you can't let that.
You can't let that affect you. But I think they need to change the roster anyway. I just don't like the idea of bringing back the same roster again. But
can I show you guys one? I told Jason this morning, and we put up the core forward net ratings. When we look at the regular season versus postseason success, right? Mm-hmm. We could argue about like what it is that isn't working, but we have tangible statistical proof now that in the playoffs, this iteration of what they're doing just hasn't had the same success as in the regular season.
Right.
Over the 3 playoffs they played together, the core four has played only 260 minutes in culmination as a whole. Look at the net ratings. Barely above a 1 in 2022-23.
That would have been the Knicks series.
That's the Knicks series. Minus 6.3 last year. That's the two series combined. This year,
that was just a partial Magic series because Jarrett missed the entire.
Well, there you go. So that's
so it's just a couple
of games
in Orlando.
And then this year, I know Darius missed, but this is just when all 4 played. The core forward and net rating minus 11.
Awful.
You want to be in the plus. Anything in the minus means it didn't work. If you look at just the guards, the Darius-Donovan combination, which we've seen work at strengths. Next graphic, whenever you're ready. We've seen it work in times. We've also not seen it in the playoffs work to the same level it's worked in the regular season.
So they've gotten worse every year.
Yes. And this one, Darius missed part of the series, and when he came back, they got smoked in Game 4 when both those played. That
so that's
hurts
2 games. This year is 2 games of Miami.
And 3 games of Indiana. Last year, Donovan missed the end of the Boston series, but they played the rest. It was a minus 4.9, and in 22-23, it was a minus 1.6. And then the bigs, the combination of Jarrett and Evan Mobley. Same thing. In the series against the Knicks, they actually had a positive net rating, ever so slightly. Last season, the few games Jarrett played with Evan, it was minus 3.1. And this year against Indiana, those two on the court together in over 460 minutes in totality have a negative net rating. We know these lineups work in the regular season. There's not a lot of evidence that say it works in the postseason, and that's why I think the Cavs, Kobe Altman, Kenny Atkinson, anyone in that front office, Mike Gansey, Dan Gilbert, have to be open-minded to any and all discussions as long as it doesn't involve Donovan and Evan. Those two are off the table.
Yeah, sure.
Everyone else, I think, is a tradable part this summer.
Yeah, absolutely. They should be listening to offers on any player besides those two. And as far as we know, Donovan's still happy, right?
Oh, yeah. He said last night how much he loves playing in this arena. And
his presser was
the crowd was awesome. I mean, the way the crowd, I mentioned this to you last night, and all fan bases do this now, refs you suck chant, that is beyond lame.
No,
that is beyond lame.
Yeah, they all do it.
All fan bases do it. But when Donovan missed those first 2 free throws, and the crowd was like trying to...
It got loud. It got real loud.
That was pretty cool. That I know he missed that third free throw, but that was cool. The whole crowd was like, we love you. Come on. We believe in you.
When they were making that comeback, and did you stay down in the press room the whole game?
Yeah.
Okay. First quarter, electric. Second and third quarters, until Ty had that last little stretch in the third, it was dead.
Yeah.
It was dead, and they weren't making shots. I don't blame them. When they cut it down to 86-87, it got loud. I'm talking like loud. And you could feel it was on the precipice of just an absolute explosion. The Cavalanche machines, Jason, which you could mention in a sec, were about to be fired off for the second time in the playoffs. They could never tie the game up, and they never took the lead. And I kept looking at her, I'm saying, hey, one stop, one bucket. Changes the entire momentum. And if that had happened, it would have been an opportunity for Cleveland to kind of seize the game, take back the crowd control, and use some of that energy to help them close out because they just didn't have a ton of energy. We saw them leaving every jump shot short. And whenever it came down to that 1-point possession or a 3-point game that they couldn't get that stop, they couldn't get that bucket. Donovan made 3 threes down the stretch, but then he missed 3 free throws. They were so close, and just couldn't finish it. But Jason, I do think it's worth mentioning your little Cavalanche story here before we move on.
Oh, everybody knows that they love the Cavalanche.
Yep.
Dan leaned into it. Dan loved it. And so they installed these Cavalanche machines that would blow confetti or fake snow or whatever into the lower bowl.
Yeah.
They paid more than $500,000 for these Cavalanche machines. Used it once in the playoffs. They got to use it one time.
Are they going to stick around for next year? It was game 2 against Miami when they made the 11 threes.
I'd want more than one blow off for my $500,000 investment.
Pause.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but real quick, Donovan last night, we haven't really talked about
his press conference was interesting.
Yeah, for 8 minutes talking about y'all going to write some shit about us, and said that a few times, and y'all going to
write us the F off.
Yeah, and it was like it was a different tone, and I'm sure it's just I wrote that he went through like all 5 stages of grief in 8 minutes, from anger to bargaining, denial. Yeah, like he hit them all.
I mean, what does he expect?
No, I took it as you're going to write us off, and I can't blame you. That's how I took it. Like,
really?
I don't think he was saying it as.
I don't know. And I had somebody say he was filming his next Adidas commercial. Like, you wait and see. That's going to show up in an Adidas commercial somewhere.
Yeah. During his exit meeting today, he said he hasn't slept. He said it doesn't matter if we go 82-0 next season. None of it's going to matter. The only thing we can do is control in the postseason. That's why I got the impression he was saying, like, you're going to write us off, and I have nothing to
come back against.
Not until next April.
Every time I would talk to him about where they were at, the success they were having, and he kept saying, we ain't won anything yet. We ain't done anything yet. He was already focused on, we have to do this in April, May, and June. Like, yes, this is great. Yes, this is fun. Yes, I'm glad y'all believe.
Yeah.
But we have to do it when it matters.
And ultimately, he knows that the great players in the NBA are judged by winning championships.
Yep.
That's it. And he's never even gotten to a conference final.
Yeah. He said, real quick, I just want to read one more quote. His message to the team this summer, it's going to be a loud summer. We got to use it all as fuel. Danny went on to say, Donovan went on to call what happened an embarrassment the team needs to face and can't run from. So not like he's shying away from the disappointment that we all feel today.
He's right. And like, I've said 100, like I'm dead inside. I don't care. This is an easy team, though, to like. It's an easy team.
Oh, sure.
It's an easy team to root for. My respect level for him in this series has gone up. And not that I didn't before, but I've just been really impressed with the way that he's just consumed by this. And I kept saying, hey, man, when you can't screw around with a calf because that can lead to an Achilles, and he just fought through it.
You knew he was going to play last night.
Oh, you knew it, because
he's a warrior.
There was no doubt.
So you can, and he's going to get knocked for it. He never made it out of the second round. This is 8 years now, haven't made it out of the second round. I don't know how you can put this series on him.
You can't.
And we've talked about it before. Like, they're playing with 2 undersized guards in the backcourt, and smaller guards can only take you so far. That's why it's so imperative that Evan becomes the guy, because I think you saw in real time what happens. And he was playing on one leg, but these guys can only take you so far. But they physically aren't built like LeBron, Giannis, Kevin Durant. They can't carry that type of load. They can't put an entire franchise on their back and take you to the finals. How much more evidence do you need?
Right.
And that's not a knock on him. He's giving you everything he's got.
Yeah.
But you can only ask a player to give you what he's capable of giving you.
Yeah.
And Donovan has given you that. But it's only going to take you so far. Eventually, if this team is going to win a championship, like Mike and I have said for years, it has to be Evan. The way that this team is constructed, and there's no other big superstar trade coming in here. We just laid out why. It has to be Evan.
And Well, it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a fascinating offseason for the Cavs. There's no doubt about it. Do they have any draft pick, second round pick, anything? They have a second round pick.
No first round pick. They have a second
round pick.
So next year they'll have a first round pick, right?
Yes, but it'll be a swap on a swap.
It's the third worst between Utah, Cleveland, Atlanta.
They'll have the worst pick of those three.
Which better be theirs.
It better be there.
And then they don't control their draft for the next 5 years. They
Right.
lose control of the draft for the next 5 years.
Right.
They are just now starting to pay
Donovan Mitchell price.
the Donovan Mitchell price.
Gotcha.
Yes, in
Gotcha.
draft picks.
Okay. All right, we'll leave it there.
But at least he's still here.
At least
Donovan's still here.
That's true.
That could have been a catastrophe
Yeah.
of a trade.
Feels